In this video, we are going to break down some productivity myths, especially if you are a human person. What does that mean? It means that you are a parent, you are a spouse, you are an online entrepreneur, and you are someone who does not want to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to be productive. If we haven't met yet, my name is Leah Fish, and I'm an entrepreneur who is passionate. I'm so passionate about helping other entrepreneurs, employees, students find their power and their productivity. Why? Because when you can do more in less time, when you can earn more money in less time, you are free. You are free to live your life the way you want to live it, and you have personal power, a sense of personal power that you can then apply to real power of doing things with your time and your money. In speaking personally, I am really motivated to do, let's say, acts of service. My husband and I just started a charity that we are very, very excited about. And I want to have more money and more time so that I can do more stuff that I think is really good in the world. So if any of that, all of that sounds exciting, interesting, inspiring, and it really lands with you, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and most importantly, stay at the end of this video where I will be dropping the link for my power audit, which only took me 20 years to create, to get all of that information in one PDF. So stay to the end and you'll be able to access that link. I would love to give that to you as a gift for you to use in your own life. So productivity myths, there are so many. Having followed the kind of jargon out there in the world of productivity, the literature for the last decade or so, there are so many things that I see that I'm like, no, they are just, I think they're really, when I said at the beginning, human person, kind of jokingly, but I really find a lot of things that are being talked about inhumane. Like they're not, the idea is to be as kind of almost as non-human as you can be. When in fact, it's the people who are more human, who are the people who have better lives, who are more satisfied, who feel more fulfilled. And often they are successful in their businesses, in their lives, etc. So this is sort of the foundation of the myth in the first place, is that you have to be different than you are. Now, for the last decade or so, I spent the first decade of my life as a professional organizer. I was one of the featured organizers on Hoarding, Buried Alive, if you've ever seen that show. I had never seen it, but I ended up being on it. But then I spent the last decade helping entrepreneurs, primarily, neurodiverse, in that not everyone has some form of neurodivergency, but many of my clients are entrepreneurs with ADD, ADHD, PTSD, OCD, because a lot of my clients are very, very creative. And for a lot of creative, again, not everyone, but a lot of creative entrepreneurs have things like ADD and ADHD, and those often go along with other things like dyslexia, dysgraphia, all kinds of other things. So that has been the world that I've been in. And what I've found is that I'm working with people. So when I was working with people doing organizing and then started specializing in hoarding, and then working with creative entrepreneurs with, diagnosed in many cases, some form of neurodivergence, there's this concept of like, there's something different about them, right? And so that's true, but that doesn't mean they can't be productive. We can't be productive. You can't be productive. Everyone, it is human nature to be productive. And that doesn't mean being the opposite of who and how you are. That is really such a freaking terrible myth that, you're a regular person, but to be, really productive, first of all, you have to go for some extreme of productivity. And second of all, that it should be like really far from who you are right now. Maybe being productive for you means being caught up on tracking your numbers for your taxes so that, um, when it comes tax time, you're caught up. And so productivity means building habits along the way so that that isn't a stressor. And I say this example because that's something that I lived for many years, despite being a professional organizer for many years. Literally I would like black out when someone said taxes. I was so incredibly stressed and felt so helpless when it came to doing taxes. And the thing about it is I wanted to do a good job. People want to be productive. It doesn't mean, in productivity, well, that's really another myth on its own, but people want to be productive. If you look at animals, they're not lounging, most of them, all day long. Squirrels, whatever animal you want to look at, you might be like, well, what about sloths? But I mean, that's actually their form of living out the way that they are, right? And humans' ways of living out the way that they are by really doing things that feel important to them, by, expressing themselves, doing the things that we're capable of, but really the things that are on our hearts. And so that doesn't take one form. Productivity doesn't look like one thing. If I say to you, like, your name, insert name here, do you feel like you're a productive person? And the answer is no. That's kind of the first place to start, because there's so many perceptions. Now, if you don't feel like you want to be a productive person, then we probably shouldn't be talking to each other. Because I want to be a really productive person, but I don't want it to be boxed in by what other people say being productive is. I believe that we can all achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve in whatever way we want to achieve it, if we are really, really committed to it, which means we're willing to do the things to get there. And we're really compassionate. These are the 3 C's that I teach about. We're committed, we're compassionate, and we're curious. If you're willing to be committed to what kind of dream you want to see happen, or what kind of productive life you want to have, you make a commitment to be compassionate to yourself. You commit to the thing, but you also commit to yourself to be compassionate, and you're willing to stay curious about what happens, because we can't control much. And that's one of the things that I think is a huge myth in the world of productivity is, how much we are pressured to control. So if you don't go to sleep for 8 hours in a cool room that's completely dark, well, then you won't be able to be productive. Well, what if you have young toddlers who are nursing and wake up throughout the night? What then? No matter how cool and dark your room is, if you're being awoken many times throughout the night, does that mean you can't be productive? Am I at my ideal productivity every day of my life? Probably not. But does that mean I can't be productive? Heck no. Okay. Maybe you're caring for, a family member or an animal that needs your help throughout the day, or a friend, right? Like our lives, if you are a human who has people and creatures that you love, there are things out of your control. So the first thing is to really accept that there's very little that we can actually control. But the things that we can control, like that good old prayer, the serenity prayer, like to understand what are the things that we can control. And one of the things that we can control is to not have ridiculous expectations of ourselves. Now, here's the thing. Here's the irony. Here's the myth busting. That when you drop the ridiculous expectations of yourself, you can achieve ridiculously amazing things. Your ability to impact yourself, the world, the people in your community becomes exponential when you let go of so many of the things of how it's supposed to be, who and how you're supposed to be, and what you're supposed to be doing. So if we go to the underlying concepts of what does it mean to be productive? Well, if we think of humans living out their best life, feeling well used, feeling engaged, if we think about productivity as something where we're removing undue, unnecessary stressors, and we're focusing our energy and our precious time on things that matter to us. We're able to engage with people that we love, that we care about. We're able to do acts of service. We're able to pet animals, whatever the things are. We're able to do sports, whatever the things that are important to you. You're able to do those things as much as you want to do those things. You have the money to do those things. Well, then you're free. And if you are free and you have the power to do those things and you're not doing them, it will suck. It will just feel so unfulfilling on a daily basis. You will feel bored. You'll feel anxious, depressed, all the things. So it's two sides of the same thing in a way, because if we aren't doing the things that we need to be doing, that we want to be doing, it won't feel good. And if we give ourselves all the space and the time and the freedom to do those things and we still don't do them, that also will not be ideal. So what we want to create in an experience of healthy, sustainable productivity is that you identify who and how you want to be, at least right now. And you gently, sustainably start to move in that direction. One, by being committed to that over time. Two, by being compassionate to yourself, that you're a human, you are not a robot. So if you're up all night, well, maybe you can't do that thing today, but you've set your life up with your habits. You've mastered the art of being caught up so that if you can't do it today, you can't do it tomorrow, you can't do it for 2 weeks, you're still okay. You didn't track your money for a month. You know what? You're still cool when it comes time for taxes, because overall you are caught up. So by doing what you can do, and I've created a productivity philosophy called JUMOR, JOUMOR, stands for joy plus humor, JUMOR, which is the place you get to on the other side of all the things that you've been avoiding, the hell and misery, as I like to say, of all the things you've been avoiding. You get there naturally. You get there naturally when we take the weight off of what you haven't been doing. You know, it's like you've been stressed about your taxes for how long? And then you do them and you're like, yes, you're like, yes, right? Like that kind of thing. That's inside you already. You know what you need to do. In so many cases, you already know what those things are, but you're not doing them. And so if you can start to get in the habit of doing the things that you already know you need to do, a lot of the things will present themselves as opportunities for things that you've always wanted to do, but never even believed that you can do. And this is going to start to weave a new level of productivity into your life. So how do we get there? We look for the places that we're basically completely blocked. And we're blocked either in a really overt way, like you have no idea how to do it, or in ways that it's constantly dragging at your mind. And one of the things about specializing with entrepreneurs with particularly ADD and ADHD is that it's, you know, so often the simplest things are so hard. They feel so hard. Like doing the laundry takes days, you know, and to someone who is, let's say, neurotypical or has a maid or both, it's not a big deal at all. Like you can't even understand why that's hard. You can't even understand why you think about it and you self-flagellate and you still don't get it done, right? Like, but for people who get that, that's normal. So if you can start to identify the areas where you lose yourself and so much of your time and your energy and your thought processes are lost in the things that you wish you could do, and you start to put into place little ways to support yourself to do those things, it's going to flip the entire world upside down. It's going to start to open places to yourself that you did not even know were possible, but deep down, you really did know. You really did believe. And so much of the pain and the grief has been because you haven't been living that out. And I saw this wonderful TED Talk by Janine someone, and she gave this great example of those little paper ketchup things. You might have seen this. There were millions of views. I just saw it on today or yesterday. And she said that, you know, how many of those do you need to fill up with ketchup to use? And people are saying like 2, 5, 7. But actually, the way they're designed, you can just push them out and make them bigger. The same thing, that same little paper ketchup holder is so much bigger. There's so much more potential right there. And so if you can identify the areas where, it's taking you so much time to do things and you're spending so much time thinking about it and you're still not getting it done, when we start to identify that and take action right there, and maybe it means that you have to redo an entire system, but that's not getting off track. You accept that that is part of making this thing the way it needs to be. You are going to start to see shifts in all parts of your life. The way you do something, here's another myth, the way you do something is not the way you do everything, as I think Tony Robbins says, completely untrue. But the way you do something is the way you do some things. So the places where you had been blocked because you have been putting all this time and energy into something that just was not reaping the kinds of results and rewards that you wanted it to, as you start to shift that, not only will you have that thing shifted, but you will be able to have all of that extra time and energy and potentially money back to do other things that you actually really care about. So this is my first YouTube video. It took me hours and hours to get here. Finally, I went with imperfection in terms of audio and visual and using these. But you know what? This is productivity. Productivity means you do what you can do. You do what you can when you can, because it's something. And then you do more of that because you've already done that, and you can not rest on your laurels, but you can say, you know what? Wow, that was hard, but you know what? I did it. And the next time I can, I'm going to do it again. And then you say, I did it 2 times. And that's how habits are built. They're not built from some hypothetical at New Year's that by January 19th, you're in the 92% who've already given up 19 days later, right? Habits are built by continuously showing up for yourself, by having commitment, by committing also to be compassionate, that it's not going to be every day, that you are not a robot, that you surrender to the reality of being human, and that productivity is possible for everyone. So identifying what it would mean for you, identifying one thing for you today. What's one thing that you've been meaning to do, or you've at this point lost faith that you could even do? Let's let it all go. All the things that have stood in the way. And my productivity philosophy, Joomer, is a collection of principles and tools. And one of them is, okay, cool. So now what? So I say to you, with all of the concepts and all of the ways that you may have perceived yourself to have failed up until this point, okay, cool. So now what? And if you have no idea where to start, sign up for this incredible power audit, like I said, that I've been building over 20 years, and start working through it. It's something I recommend doing every quarter or every 6 months, every time you think you've gotten through it. Although some of my clients are like, Leah, this would take me years to get through. But you know what? Start. Let's start. And I'd love to hear in the comments for you, where are the ways that you feel you could easily start? Once you get this power audit, what's the first thing that you're going to do? And then when you do it, commit to it that you're going to do it. And then tell us that you did it. I hope this has been helpful for you. If this kind of rambling, but also practical and tactical information is interesting and helpful to you, please do hit subscribe and stay on to the end of this, where you will see the link to the power audit. I'm so grateful for you watching this entire video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.